Right. Then, after aluminium, we're moving on to the next element, carbon. Then, moving on to the next element, that is carbon. So, moment you're talking about the case of carbon, carbon is also known as the king of elements. Carbon is known as the king of elements. So the reason why carbon is known as king of elements, why it is known as. Now, for example, sulfuric acid, king of chemicals, and the moment you're saying carbon, it is known as king of elements. The reason for that one. Now, as on today's date, we have got almost around 3.5 million compounds. And the moment you are saying 3.5 million compounds around us, for example, NaCl, talking about KCl, H2SO4, HNO3, nitric acid, ఇలాంటివి చూసుకుంటే దాదాపుగా 3.5 million compounds ఉన్నాయి. And in that particular 3.5 million compounds, almost around 2.5 million compounds of carbon is present. Now, the reason why carbon is present in so many compounds is that carbon will not lose electrons, carbon will not gain electrons, carbon involves only in the sharing of electrons. Nothing but the case of a covalent bond. That is the reason why carbon is present in more than 2.5 million compounds, and hence it is known as the king of elements. At the same time, the moment talking about the case of carbon involves in the formation of long chain compounds. Carbon involves the formation of long chain compounds, and the process is known as catenation. Carbon involves in the formation of long chain compounds. For example, Buckminster fullerene C60 and that particular process where long chain compounds are formed, that is known as catenation. At the same time, carbon exists in four different allotropic forms. Carbon exists in four different allotropic forms. So, what are the four different forms? So, one is coal, the second one diamond, and then graphite, and then the last one, Buckminster fullerene, also known as C60. Carbon exists in four different forms, four different allotropic forms: coal, diamond, graphite. At the same time, Buckminster fullerene, right, also known as C60. Now, the moment you're talking about the case of coal, first and foremost thing, how coal is formed. బొగ్గు అనేది ఎలా తయారవుతుంది. Now we know that the formation of coal is a natural process. సహజంగా ప్రకృతిలో జరుగుతున్న ఒక ప్రాసెస్. We are not creating, we are not making coal. It is taking place naturally. మరి ఎలా తయారవుతుంది అని అన్నప్పుడు the fossils, nothing but the dead remains of animals and plants. ఈ రోజు డేట్లో ఉన్న చెట్లు కావచ్చు, లేదా మహావృక్షాలు కానివ్వండి, or else even the case of your animals. Now, after their lifetime, which means after their death, so whenever the plant material కానివ్వండి, animals కానివ్వండి, whenever they are mixing up with soil, మట్టిలో కలిసిపోయిన తర్వాత కొన్ని సంవత్సరాలు, కొన్ని వందల సంవత్సరాలు కావచ్చు, కొన్ని వేల సంవత్సరాలు కావచ్చు, when they are subjected to high amount of temperature and pressure, టెంపరేచర్ ఎక్కువగా ఉండాలి ఆ పర్టికులర్ ప్లేస్లో, అదేవిధంగా ప్రెషర్ కూడా ఎక్కువగా ఉన్నట్లయితే, దెన్ ఇన్ దాట్ పర్టికులర్ కేస్ ఈ రోజు రేట్లో ఉన్న చెట్లు, వృక్షాలు ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో, ఆఫ్టర్ సమ్ hundreds and thousands of years, that will result in the formation of coal. The formation of coal is known as carbonification. Now the question is that what do you mean by carbonification? The plant material, the plant and the animal material, the plant and animal material, the plant and the animal material, the plant and the animal material buried deep inside the earth, buried deep inside the earth, when subjected to, when subjected to high temperature and pressure, when subjected to high temperature and pressure, leads to formation of coal, leads to formation of coal, and it is known as carbonification, and it is known as carbonification. That. So the moment you're talking about the case of carbonification, సో కార్బోనిఫికేషన్ ప్రాసెస్లో బొగ్గు అనేది తయారవుతుంది, ఏర్పడుతుంది అని అంటే మరి బొగ్గు ఎన్ని రకాలు? అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం హౌ డు యూ క్లాసిఫై దట్ అని అంటే బేస్డ్ ఆన్ కార్బన్ పర్సంటేజ్, based on carbon percentage, coal is 4 types. Based on carbon percentage, coal is 4 types. Right. So the very first one, we talk about the case of peat coal. Peat coal. It has around 30 to 35% of carbon. 30 to 35% of carbon. It is known as low grade coal. It is known as low grade coal. So the reason for that one and why it is known as low grade coal and ante, the reason for that one, it has got less amount of efficiency. దీని యొక్క సామర్థ్యం అనేది చాలా తక్కువ. It is known as low grade coal because of less efficiency. Mari, what do you mean by less efficiency అని అంటే whenever we are using this particular peat coal, we get more amount of smoke. Peat coal gives more amount of smoke, more amount of ash, but less amount of energy. So do we require more energy or less energy? We require more energy and less amount of smoke, less amount of ash, but this one is giving quite opposite. And it is known as low grade coal అని అంటాం because it is giving us more smoke, it gives more amount of ash and less amount of energy. So this is the first type of coal. Then the second type of coal based on carbon percentage. So based on carbon percentage, the second type of coal, lignite coal. Lignite coal. So the moment talking about the case of lignite coal, it has around 50% of carbon, or else you can even write around 50 to 55% of carbon. It consists of around 50 to 55% of carbon. It is also known as brown coal. The reason for that one, it is slightly brownish in color. Also known as brown coal. So if we talk about geography point of view, one of the previous question also you can say this. Naiveli Valley in Tamil Nadu is famous for lignite coal in India. Naiveli Valley in Tamil Nadu is famous for lignite coal. The third type of coal based on carbon percentage, bituminous coal. Bituminous coal. The percentage of carbon around 80 to 85%. The percentage of carbon around 80 to 85%. It is also known as black coal, also known as black coal, and it is used as domestic fuel. And it is used as domestic fuel. సో మన ఇంటి అవసరాల కొరకు మనం ఉపయోగించే బొగ్గు అంతా కూడా ఇట్ ఈస్ బిటుమినస్ కోల్. వి నెవర్ యూస్ ద పీట్ కోల్, వి నెవర్ యూస్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ ద లిగ్నైట్ కోల్. నా ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ యూ టాక్ అబౌట్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ సమ్ పర్సన్స్ ఇస్త్రీ చేస్తూ ఉంటారు, బట్టలు ఐరన్ చేసేవారు. సో వాళ్ళు యూస్ చేసే కోల్ దట్ ఈస్ అది ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ బిటుమినస్ కోల్. అండ్ అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం సపోజ్ దట్ ఇఫ్ ఎట్ ఆల్ ఎప్పుడైనా చిన్న పిల్లలు కదా న్యూ బోర్న్ బేబీస్కి సాంబ్రాణి పెడతా ఉంటారు. Now, even for that one also, they use only this particular thing, which are calling it as the bituminous coal. The reason for that one, it gives less amount of smoke. But the thing is that anthracite coal will give even lesser amount of smoke. కానీ ఇండియాలో anthracite coal deposits are almost equal to zero. సో ఇండియాలో anthracite coal deposits ఉన్నాయా లేవా అంటే దాదాపుగా జీరో అని చెప్తాం. సో మన దగ్గర ఉన్న కోల్ డిపాజిట్స్ ఏవి అని అన్నప్పుడు, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇఫ్ యూ టాక్ అబౌట్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ సింగరేణి కావచ్చు, రామగుండం కావచ్చు, ఆర్ ఎల్స్ ఇఫ్ యూ గో టు ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ బీహార్, ఛత్తీస్గఢ్, బీహార్, ఆ పర్టికులర్ స్టేట్స్లో దొరికేదంతా కూడా బిటుమినస్ కోల్ మాత్రమే. Right? Anthracite coal deposits in India are almost equal to zero. Right. So we use this particular one as a domestic fuel in India. At the same time, we talk about the case, the last one that is anthracite coal. Anthracite coal. The percentage of carbon is around 92 to 96%. Carbon percentage around 92 to 96% carbon. At the same time, it has got maximum amount of efficiency. It has maximum amount of efficiency. The efficiency of anthracite coal is maximum. At the same time, it gives less amount of smoke, less amount of ash, but it gives more amount of energy. It gives more amount of energy. Less amount of smoke, less amount of ash, but more amount of energy. At the same time, it is considered to be the purest form of coal. It is considered to be the purest form of coal. At the same time, anthracite coal is the last type of coal that is formed in carbonification. The last type of coal that is formed in carbonification. The last type of coal that is formed in carbonification. Now, what is the meaning of this particular statement? So coal basically it is of four types. One is the case of peat coal, the other one lignite coal, bituminous coal, as well as the case of anthracite coal. So peat coal is the one which is having the minimum amount of efficiency. అలాగే కార్బోనిఫికేషన్ ప్రక్రియలో ఆ ప్రాసెస్లో అన్నిటికన్నా మొదట ఏర్పడే కోల్ ఏది అన్నప్పుడు పీట్ కోల్. The same peat coal, when it is subjected to temperature and pressure for few more years, అంటే ఒకటి రెండు సంవత్సరాలు కాదు కొన్ని వందల సంవత్సరాల తర్వాత peat coal will get converted to bituminous will get peat coal will get converted to lignite will get converted to bituminous, and finally the last type of coal that is formed is a case of anthracite coal. సో ఇదే క్వశ్చన్ మనం ఇంకో విధంగా చెప్తే కార్బోనిఫికేషన్ ప్రక్రియలో మొదట ఏర్పడే బొగ్గు రకం ఏది? The very first type coal is peat coal. The last type of coal that is formed is the case of anthracite coal. Right. Now this is about the case of carbon. Then we talk about the case of silicon. The next element here, we talk about the case of silicon. So the moment you're talking about the case of silicon, we know one thing. It is the best semiconducting material. The best semiconductor. Silicon is the best semiconductor. It is the best semiconductor. Right. At the same time, silicon is used in the making of microprocessors. Anything else? Microcontrollers. Okay, fine. So we, in general, computer chips. Silicon is used in the making of microprocessors, microcontrollers, computer chips. At the same time, solar cells, and then photovoltaic cells, and integrated circuits, nothing but IC and integrated circuits. Silicon is used in the making of microprocessor, microcontroller, integrated chips, at the same time the solar cells and photovoltaic cells. So for your information, generally చాలా మంది సోలార్ సెల్స్ ఫోటోవోల్టాయిక్ సెల్స్ రెండు ఒకటే అని ఫీల్ అవుతూ ఉంటారు, కానీ రెండు కూడా టోటలీ డిఫరెంట్. సో ఫోటోవోల్టాయిక్ సెల్స్ ఏం చేస్తాయి అని అన్నప్పుడు దే కన్వర్ట్ ద సన్లైట్ ఇంటూ లైట్ ఎనర్జీ. ఫోటో అంటాం, ఫోటోవోల్టాయిక్ సెల్స్ దే కన్వర్ట్ light and sunlight into light energy. But wherein solar cells they convert sunlight into electrical energy. That is the best. సో ఎలక్ట్రికల్ ఎనర్జీని తర్వాత మళ్ళీ మనం లైట్ కోసం యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు, లేదా ద కేస్ అదర్ అప్లికేషన్ కోసం యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాం. బట్ ద మూమెంట్ యూ టాకింగ్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ ఫోటోవోల్టాయిక్ సెల్స్, దే కన్వర్ట్ సన్లైట్ ఇంటూ లైట్ ఎనర్జీ alone. But solar cells are converting sunlight into electrical energy. ఆ ఎలక్ట్రికల్ ఎనర్జీ మనము టీవీ కోసం, ఫ్యాన్ కోసం, లైట్ కోసం, జనరేటర్ కోసం, or else you can use it for any purpose. That is the basic difference. And these particular solar cells or photovoltaic cells, they are made using, they are constructed using silicon ion. At the same time, the moment talking about the case of silicon along with oxygen, silicon along with oxygen, ఇలా రాయకండి, write the complete statement. Silicon along with oxygen is used as silica gel. Silicon along with oxygen is used as silica gel. I hope you might have seen silica gel. చూసే ఉంటారు. So in general, whenever you talk about the case of this particular water bottles కానివ్వండి, or else you talk about the case of electronic items, I hope you might have seen these things. Right. So where do you find these packets? So you find them in branded water bottles, electronic items. At the same time, the case of your air conditioners boxes, refrigerator boxes, whatever you find this particular thing. Right. So silicon along with oxygen is used as a silica gel, and the question is that what is the use of this one? Why it is used? And if you observe, even Ayurvedic medicines ఏవైతే వాటిలో కూడా you find these particular packets. The reason for that one, it is used to absorb moisture. Silica gel is used to absorb moisture. Silicon along with oxygen is known as, or else is used as silica gel, which is used to absorb moisture. Which is used to absorb moisture. Right. Now, ఈ ప్యాకెట్స్ ఎప్పుడైనా ఓపెన్ చేశారా? Yes or no? The question, we have got a question which is based on that. That's the reason why I'm asking you. Packet ఎప్పుడైనా ఓపెన్ చేశారా? Now, what is the color of those particular crystals which are present in them? Is it white? Is it white color? It is colorless. White is different, colorless is different, right? Milk is white in color, water is colorless. So, what is the color of silica gel? This is a question which was asked in SSC JE examination, right? And the color of silica gel is colorless. It is colorless. Silica gel is colorless. It is colorless. At the same time, the source of silicon is silicon dioxide, which is available in sand. The source of silicon dioxide, the source of silicon is silicon dioxide. The source of silicon is silicon dioxide, which is available in sand. సో ఈ SiO2 ఉపయోగించి గ్లాస్ కూడా తయారు చేస్తారు. SiO2 is the raw material. You can write one more point here. SiO2 is the raw material which is used in the making of glass. It is a raw material which is used in the making of glass. After silicon, so then we'll move on to the next one, that is the case of nitrogen. The next element, that is nitrogen. So the moment talking about the case of nitrogen, right? 78% of air consists of nitrogen. 78% of air consists of nitrogen. 21% of air consists of oxygen. 78% of air is consisting of nitrogen, 21% of air is consisting of oxygen at the same time. Nitrogen and oxygen are present in air. Nitrogen and oxygen are present in air in the ratio of 4:1. In the ratio of 4:1. So ఇదే స్టేట్మెంట్ మనం ఇంకో విధంగా చెప్తాం. 4/5 of air consists of nitrogen. All the three are the same. 78% anna, 4:1 anna, 4/5 anna, all them mean the same. 4/5 of air. 4/5 of air consists of nitrogen. Consists of nitrogen. At the same time, nitrogen is essential. Nitrogen is an essential element in fertilizers. Nitrogen is an essential element in case of fertilizers. So fertilizers and ante brackets below you can write NPK fertilizers. Nitrogen, phosphorus, as well as the case of potassium. These three are very important for any particular plant at the same time. Nitrogen is absorbed by the roots of Leguminosae family. Nitrogen is absorbed by the roots of the plants belonging to Leguminosae family. Nitrogen is absorbed by the roots of the plants belonging to Leguminosae family. So what is this ani ante? Leguminosae family చిక్కుడు జాతి మొక్కలు అని అంటారు. అది గోరు చిక్కుడు కావచ్చు, చిక్కుడుకాయ కానివ్వండి, బీన్స్ కానివ్వండి, లేదా ఈవెన్ టాక్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ బటానీ అని అంట, లేదా మటర్ అని అంట. Now all these particular things they come to one particular family which are calling it as the Leguminosae family anta. At the same time, nitrogen is filled in electric bulb. పాతకాలంలో bulb. I'm not talking about the case of the fluorescent one, I'm talking about this one. Nitrogen is filled in electric bulb. Why? To provide inert atmosphere. Yes, it is non-reactive, but we use the word to provide inert atmosphere. Jada Vatavarnamu. Nitrogen is filled in electric bulb to provide inert atmosphere. Then, nitrogen is filled in vehicle tires. Is this correct? Now, in Madhya Kalamlo, we see this thing, petrol pumps low, you find one board, nitrogen, air available అని ఉంటుంది. If you have observed that. Is it a correct word? Nitrogen available correct? Nitrogen air available correct? Nitrogen air and word ఉంటుంది అసలు. Air లో nitrogen is a component, is one part of that one. So the boards that we are seeing outside is totally wrong. Nitrogen available undali kani nitrogen air anedi tappu adi. So in case of your petrol pumps, as on today's date, we are saying one thing, nitrogen available. And the question is that vehicle tanks lo ee madhya kalamlo last 3 years or 4 years nundi observe chese nitrogen fill chestunnaru. And the question is that why? ఇంతకుముందు ఎయిర్ ఫిల్ చేసాం, ఇప్పటికి కూడా చాలా మంది ఎయిర్ ఫిల్ చేస్తున్నారు, కానీ కొంతమంది మాత్రమే నైట్రోజన్ ప్రిఫర్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఎస్పెషల్లీ 4-wheelers లో. Now the question is that why nitrogen is being used in case of vehicle tires? Do we have any particular logical reason behind it? Right? The logical reason behind that one is, suppose that in this particular season, right, లేదా ఇంకో 15 days తర్వాత మనం చూసినట్లయితే highways by, especially when you're traveling in a car at a speed of 120 or 140 or particular speed 100 datin tarvata, the friction, because of the friction between the tire and the road, the air which is present in the tube will undergo expansion. Any particular gas, if it is getting heated, it undergoes expansion. Expansion of air is very much high when compared to nitrogen. ఒకవేళ ట్యూబ్లో ఉన్న గాలి చాలా ఎక్కువగా ఎక్స్పాండ్ అవుతే అట్ వన్ పర్టికులర్ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ టైం ఆ ట్యూబ్ కానివ్వండి, టైర్ కానివ్వండి, బర్స్ట్ అయ్యే ఛాన్సెస్ ఎక్కువగా ఉంటాయి. ఎస్పెషల్లీ ఒకవేళ వెహికల్ టైర్స్ ఒక 3 years 4 years వెహికల్ టైర్స్ అవుతే, దెన్ ఇన్ దాట్ పర్టికులర్ కేస్ వాటి ఎలాస్టిక్ నేచర్ అనేది తగ్గిపోతుంది, కాబట్టి టైర్ బర్స్ట్ అవుతాయి. టైర్ బర్స్ట్ అయిన ఇమ్మీడియట్లీ యూ ఫైండ్ నంబర్ ఆఫ్ యాక్సిడెంట్స్, చాలా మంది చనిపోయారు కూడా అలా. Now the reason for that one, first and foremost thing, our vehicle tires chala paatavi. The other reason for that one is they're using air in that. But nitrogen use cheste advantage enti annappudu nitrogen gas heat aina kuda the expansion of nitrogen is very less. That is the reason why nitrogen is filled in case of vehicle tires. Right. So these are some of the, at the same time, nitrogen is a colorless odorless, and tasteless gas. Rangu, Ruchi, Vasana Leni, Vayu. Nitrogen is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless gas. After nitrogen, we talk about the case of phosphorus. So, the moment talking about the case of phosphorus, phosphorus exists in three forms: white phosphorus, red phosphorus, and yellow phosphorus. White, red, and yellow phosphorus. So this particular white phosphorus is very reactive. White phosphorus is very reactive. So it is always preserved or stored in water. White phosphorus is very reactive. So it is always preserved in water. White phosphorus is very reactive, so it is always preserved in water. White phosphorus along with zinc phosphate, white phosphorus along with zinc phosphate is used to kill rats. White phosphorus is used, so white phosphorus along with zinc phosphate is used to kill rats. Then, the moment talking about the case of red phosphorus is used in matchstick industry. Red phosphorus is used in matchstick industry. Red phosphorus is used in matchstick industry. Right. So the moment talking about the case of matchstick industry. So in case of each and every particular matchstick, it is something like this. At the same time, each and every particular matchbox has got a rough surface on these two things. Right. The question is that matchstick head lo unde chemicals heavy. The matchstick head consists of it consists of potassium chlorate. Matchstick head it consists of potassium chlorate and antimony sulfide. Matchstick head consists of potassium chlorate and antimony sulfide. అలాగే this rough surface ఏదైతే ఉందో, so ఈ rough surface it consists of antimony sulfide along with this red phosphorus and along with glass powder. The striking surface, the rough surface, it consists of antimony sulfide, red phosphorus, and along with that glass powder. Now this is about the case of nitrogen as well as the case of phosphorus. Then moving on to the next one, that is oxygen. The moment you're talking about the case of oxygen is essential for life on earth. it is essential for life on Earth. So without oxygen, can we expect life on Earth? Can we survive for 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Oxygen లేకపోతే at least 2 minutes, right? So 2 minutes, it depends on the person how far he is able to control that one. So any person who is involved or else who is doing yoga, they can hold the breath for some time, approximately for around 2 minutes or so. But beyond that one, it becomes highly difficult. So that is the reason why we say that oxygen is essential for life on Earth. Then oxygen facilitates the formation of acids. Oxygen facilitates the formation of acids. Oxygen facilitates the formation of acids. Right. Right. First, listen this concept, and then you can write it. Oxygen and helium. Now, basically, the moment you're talking about the case of this particular combination, yes. So here we are talking about the case of different things here. So you can see a particular person who is climbing the mountains, and at the same time he is carrying a cylinder here. At the same time, a person who is going for deep sea diving, he is also carrying one cylinder. Now, a cylinder లో ఏముంటుంది? That is the question. Is it only 100% pure oxygen? And the answer is no. It is not 100% pure oxygen. Now we have got two questions which are based on this one. So what are those two things? Ante, in the early or else in the olden days or else few years back, the combination of oxygen along with nitrogen was used. Kani, this is a very old method. But as on today's date, we are using the combination of oxygen and helium. Now the question is that why we are using oxygen and helium when compared to oxygen and nitrogen? The answer for that one is, in general, for any particular patient, maybe this one or maybe that particular case, లేదా ఐసీయూలో ఉన్న పేషెంట్స్ కావచ్చు, ఆస్తమా పేషెంట్స్ కానీ వీళ్ళకు ప్రతి క్షణం కనుంటాం లేదా ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీ పర్టికులర్ మిల్లీ సెకండ్ ఈజ్ ఆల్సో వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫర్ దోస్ పర్టికులర్ పర్సన్స్ బికాస్ at these particular places they require oxygen continuously, at these particular place they require oxygen continuously. At the same time, ICU lo ఉన్న patients kuda they require oxygen compulsory each and every particular millisecond. ఒకవేళ ఆక్సిజన్ అందకపోతే it can even lead to the death of that particular person. సో ఇక్కడ ఆక్సిజన్ అందడం అంటే ఏంటి? కేవలం పీల్చుకోవడం మాత్రమేనా, లేదా శరీరంలోని ప్రతి ఒక్క భాగానికి కూడా ఆక్సిజన్ సప్లై అవ్వడం? శరీరంలోని ప్రతి ఒక్క భాగానికి కూడా ఆక్సిజన్ సప్లై అవ్వాలి. సో ఎప్పుడైతే ఆక్సిజన్ నైట్రోజన్ కాంబినేషన్ యూజ్ చేస్తున్నామో, నైట్రోజన్ అనేది బ్లడ్లో డిజాల్వ్ కాదు. కాబట్టి ఆక్సిజన్ సప్లై టు ఆల్ పార్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ ద బాడీ విల్ బి స్లో. కానీ దానికి రీప్లేస్మెంట్గా యాజ్ ఆన్ టుడేస్ డేట్ వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ oxygen along with helium is being used. Now the reason for that particular thing is that helium will dissolve in the blood very quickly, and as a result oxygen can be supported to all, can be provided to all parts of the body very quick when compared to this particular combination. Now the question is that we have got two questions. So for asthma patients, or else for scuba divers, or else for the case of your mountaineers. So along with oxygen, which other gas is included? What is the answer for that one? Helium. Now there is one more question which is based on this. Why the combination of oxygen and helium is preferred when compared to oxygen and nitrogen? Idi kuda SSC lo adina question. The reason for that one, oxygen and helium will dissolve in blood, and whereas this one is not dissolvable in blood or is soluble in blood. That is the reason why, as on today's date, we are using this combination but not this particular combination. Oxygen along with helium. Oxygen along with helium is given to oxygen along with helium is given to mountaineers. Oxygen along with helium is given to mountaineers, deep sea divers, and asthma patients, and asthma patients. The the next one. Oxygen along with acetylene, oxygen along with acetylene is used as oxyacetylene flame, oxyacetylene flame, which is used in oxyacetylene flame, which is used in glass blowing, which is used in glass blowing. Now, this is what you are calling it as glass blowing. అంటే మన అవసరానికి తగ్గట్టుగా గాజుని మనము డిఫరెంట్ వేస్గా ఉపయోగిస్తాం. ఎలక్ట్రిక్ బల్బ్ కోసం కావచ్చు, డెకరేషన్ ఐటమ్స్ కోసం కావచ్చు, లేదా గ్లాసులు కానివ్వండి, జగ్ కానివ్వండి, డిపెండింగ్ ఆన్ ద రిక్వైర్మెంట్ వీఆర్ కన్వర్టింగ్ ద షేప్ ఆఫ్ ద గ్లాస్, అండ్ దట్ ప్రాసెస్ ఇస్ నోన్ యాజ్ గ్లాస్ బ్లోయింగ్ అని అంటాం. So this is about the case of oxygen. Then the next one, that is sulfur. So the moment you're talking about the case of sulfur, sulfur exists in 8 different forms. Sulfur exists in 8 different forms. And the 8 different forms low, rhombic sulfur is the most stable one. Rhombic sulfur is the most stable one. Sulfur exists in 8 different forms, and rhombic sulfur is the most stable form. See, the tears in eyes, the tears in eyes. So when do you get tears in eyes? Right. The tears in eyes while cutting onions. The tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of the tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of sulfur compounds. The tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of sulfur compounds. Right. Now there is one question which is in SSC examination. The tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of which sulfur compound? ఇప్పుడు సల్ఫర్ కాంపౌండ్ అని అంటే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇఫ్ ఐ సే సల్ఫ్యూరిక్ యాసిడ్, అందులో సల్ఫర్ ఉందా లేదా? ఉందా లేదా? ఉంది. మరి అది సల్ఫర్ కాంపౌండ్ అని పిలవచ్చా, పిలవలేము? యూ కెన్ సే దట్. అలాగే హైడ్రోజన్ సల్ఫైడ్, ఈవెన్ యూ హ్యావ్ ఇన్ దాట్. ద క్వశ్చన్ ఇస్ దట్, so the tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of which sulfur compound? ఏ కాంపౌండ్ అంటే సల్ఫర్ కాంపౌండ్ అన్నాం, కానీ ఏ సల్ఫర్ కాంపౌండ్ అంటే ఏది? The answer for that one is the tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of synpropane ethyl S oxide. The tears in eyes while cutting onions is because of cyanpropanethiol S oxide. So this particular chemical is responsible for tears in the eyes while cutting the onions. మరి దానికి సొల్యూషన్ ఉందా ఏమన్నా? కొంతమంది కొన్ని టెక్నిక్స్ వాడుతూ ఉంటారు. ఉల్లిపాయలు కట్ చేసే ముందు దాన్ని వాటర్ నానబెడతా ఉంటారు. సో ఇట్ కెన్ రెడ్యూస్ ద వాటర్ కంటెంట్ టు ఎ సర్టన్ ఎక్స్టెంట్ మాత్రమే, నాట్ 100%. Now the question is that why this particular tears in eyes while cutting the onions? Onions cut చేసేటప్పుడు this particular chemical ఏదైతే ఉందో that will be released into the air. And this particular chemical, it can readily react with moisture. గాల్లో ఉన్న మాయిశ్చర్లో కావచ్చు, లేదా మన చుట్టూ మాయిశ్చర్ ఎక్కడ ఉంది? ఫస్ట్ ఐస్లో మాయిశ్చర్ ఎక్కువగా ఉంటుంది. సో that particular chemical is reacting with the moisture which is present in air, leading to the case of your tears. కొంతమందికి కళ్ళు చాలా డ్రైగా ఉంటాయి, వాటర్ కంటెంట్ చాలా తక్కువగా ఉంటుంది. వాళ్ళు ఉల్లిపాయలు ఎన్ని కట్ చేసినా కూడా నీళ్లు ఎక్కువగా రావు, రైట్? సో ద రీజన్ ఫర్ దాట్ వన్ ఇస్ డ్రైనెస్ దేర్. Then we're talking about the case of sulfur. Sulfur is used in the making of, right like this. Sulfur mixed with potassium nitrate. Sulfur mixed with potassium nitrate and charcoal powder. Sulfur mixed with potassium nitrate and charcoal powder is used as gunpowder. Sulfur, potassium nitrate and charcoal combination is known as gunpowder. And for your reference, so Chinese crackers slow, they don't use potassium nitrate, they are using ammonium nitrate use చేస్తారు. సో ఇండియాలో తయారు చేసే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ తమిళనాడులోని శివకాశి, సో ఆ పర్టికులర్ ప్లేస్లో తయారు చేసే క్రాకర్స్ అన్నింటిలో కూడా దే ఆర్ యూజింగ్ పొటాషియం నైట్రేట్. కానీ చైనీస్ క్రాకర్స్లో దే ఆర్ యూజింగ్ అమోనియం నైట్రేట్, అండ్ అమోనియం నైట్రేట్ ఈస్ వెరీ వెరీ చీపర్, చాలా తక్కువ కాస్ట్. దట్ ఈస్ ద రీజన్ వై ఒకవేళ మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తే లాస్ట్ 5 years or 6 years నుండి దీపావళి టైంలో క్రాకర్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో కిలోలాగా అమ్ముతా ఉన్నారు, రైట్? 600 rupees కిలో, 700 rupees కిలో. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైమ్ ద మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ థింగ్ ఏంటన్నప్పుడు ఆ క్రాకర్స్ ఒకవేళ మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేసినట్లయితే ఇట్ ఈస్ గివింగ్ అస్ మోర్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ స్మోక్, మోర్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ యాష్. సో ఇమ్మీడియట్లీ ఆఫ్టర్ ద నెక్స్ట్ డే మెనీ పీపుల్ ఆర్ హ్యావింగ్ ఇరిటేషన్ ఇన్ ద ఐస్, కళ్ళలో మంట, కళ్ళలో వచ్చే నీళ్లు కారణం ఏంటి అంటే అమోనియం నైట్రేట్. But whereas in case of your Indian crackers, we use potassium nitrate, but in case of Chinese crackers, they use this particular thing which are calling it as potassium nitrate. Then the next one, that is fluorine. So the moment you're talking about the case of fluorine, fluorine is also known as superhalogen. Fluorine also known as superhalogen. Electronegativity of fluorine is maximum. Electronegativity of fluorine is maximum. Mari, is this fluorine required for us? So fluorine is essential for the formation of enamel on teeth. Fluorine is essential for the formation of enamel on teeth. Right. So enamel lekapothe em avutundi? Yesterday someone was asking me this one. So fluorine is essential for the formation of enamel. Well, enamel lekapothe, whenever you're having ice cream, whenever you're having tea or coffee, you'll be having a painful sensation, burning sensation అని అంటాం. లేదా టీవీలో అడ్వర్టైజ్మెంట్స్ చూస్తుంటే పళ్ళు జివ్వమంటా ఉంటాం, రైట్? ద రీజన్ ఫర్ దాట్ వన్, the nerves which are present in the teeth, they are getting exposed to a hot substance or else they are exposed to a cool substance. That is the reason why you are having a burning sensation. మరి దానికి సొల్యూషన్ ఏంటి అన్నప్పుడు వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ సెన్సోడెంట్ ఆర్ పెప్సోడెంట్. అది యూజ్ చేయడం మూలంగా టీత్లో ఉన్న నర్వ్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో దే బికమ్ ఫ్రిజిడ్. అంటే చల్లగా ఉన్న పదార్థాలు వేడిగా ఉన్న పదార్థాలు తాకినా కూడా వాటికి ఎటువంటి సెన్సేషన్ అంటూ ఉండదు. దే ఆర్ నాట్ క్రియేటింగ్ ఎనామల్. రిమెంబర్ దాట్ వన్. దే డజంట్ క్రియేట్ ఎనీ ఎనామల్. సో ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చేతి మీద ఐస్ రాసామనుకోండి, ఇదంతా ఏమవుతుంది, మొద్దుబారిపోయినట్టు అవుతాం. రైట్, ఇట్ బికమ్స్ వెరీ మచ్ హార్డ్. ఒక సూది పెట్టి కూర్చున్నా కూడా యూ డోంట్ ఫైండ్ మచ్ సెన్సేషన్. పెయిన్ అనేది ఎక్కువ కనిపించదు. ద సేమ్ థింగ్ ఈస్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ ఎ సెన్సోడెంట్ ఆర్ పెప్సోడెంట్ విచ్ ఇస్ డూయింగ్ ఇట్. At the same time, suppose that if you're talking about the case of your fluorine, more than 3 milligrams of fluorine per liter of water. More than 3 milligrams of fluorine per liter of water. See, this is an average value. What I'm giving you is this. ఎందుకంటే పిల్లల్లో వాల్యూ ఒకటి ఉంటుంది, అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం అడల్ట్స్లో వాల్యూ వేరే విధంగా ఉంటుంది. And I think that will be discussed in your biology, I suppose. So I'm giving an average value. So more than 3 milligrams of fluorine per liter of water leads to fluorosis. More than 3 milligrams of fluorine per liter of water. So మనం తాగే నీళ్ళలో ప్రతి లీటర్లో if at all fluorine is present more than 3 milligrams, it leads to one problem which are calling it as fluorosis. And any person who is suffering from fluorosis, his structure will be something like this. The legs will become like this. So if you talk about the case of fluorosis, and then Nalgonda is very much famous for fluorosis. At the same time, the teeth will become like this, yellowish in color, or as the case of the black color, whatever is that. Now all these are the consequence of one thing which are calling it as more amount of fluorine. Fluorine ఎక్కువగా ఉన్న ప్రాబ్లమే, at the same time తక్కువగా ఉన్నా కూడా it leads to problems. Then we talk about the case of the next one, that is chlorine. Chlorine. So what is this chlorine? Chlorine is a green colored gas, with pungent smell, ghataina vasana. A green colored gas with pungent smell. A green colored gas with pungent smell. I think yesterday I told you one point, right? It is the only gas which is not present in air. The only gas which is not present in air is chlorine. Chlorine along with lime, chlorine along with lime gives bleaching powder. Chlorine along with lime gives bleaching powder, which is used as disinfectant, Chlorine along with lime gives bleaching powder, which is used as a disinfectant at the same time. Chlorine is used in the making of poisonous gases like tear gas, phosphogene. Chlorine is used in the making of tear gas, phosphogene, and mustard gas. టియర్ గ్యాస్ వినే ఉంటారు, నంబర్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్స్ న్యూస్ ఛానల్స్లో చూసే ఉంటారు. పోలీస్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ వాళ్ళు యూజ్ చేసేది టియర్ గ్యాస్. ఫాస్ఫోజీన్, మస్టర్డ్ గ్యాస్, ఈ రెండు మాత్రం కేవలం యుద్ధం సమయంలో మాత్రమే ఉపయోగిస్తారు, నాట్ డ్యూరింగ్ ద కేస్ ఆఫ్ సివిల్ డిస్టర్బెన్సెస్. ఇంటర్నల్గా ఏదైనా దేశంలో ఏదైనా గొడవలు జరుగుతున్నప్పుడు పోలీస్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ వాళ్ళు కానివ్వండి, ర్యాపిడ్ యాక్షన్ ఫోర్స్ వాళ్ళు కానివ్వండి, యూజ్ చేసేది టియర్ గ్యాస్ యూజ్ చేస్తారు. ఫాస్ఫజీను అలాగే మస్టర్డ్ గ్యాస్ ఈ రెండు కూడా జనరల్గా ఓన్లీ డ్యూరింగ్ ద వార్ టైం మాత్రమే యూజ్ చేస్తారు. అండ్ దిస్ పర్టికులర్ మస్టర్డ్ గ్యాస్ దీన్ని మొదటిసారి ఉపయోగించింది సెకండ్ వరల్డ్ వార్ టైంలో హిట్లర్ మొదటిసారి ఉపయోగించారు. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం ఈ మధ్య కాలంలో ఒకవేళ మీరు న్యూస్ కానీ వెబ్ సిరీస్ కానీ ఏమైనా చూస్తున్నట్లయితే దెర్ ఈస్ వన్ గ్యాస్ విచ్ హ్యాస్ బికమ్ వెరీ వెరీ పాపులర్ దీస్ డేస్. సిరీన్ గ్యాస్ అని అంటారు. And the speciality of that particular serine gas is that it mixes with air very very fast. At the same time ఆ పర్టికులర్ ప్లేస్లో ఏదైనా ఒక వాటర్ బాడీ ఏదైనా ఉంటే నది ప్రవహిస్తున్నట్లయితే that particular gas will react with water and that particular water will become poisonous immediately. It means that ఆ పర్టికులర్ ప్లేస్లో ఒకవేళ సెరీన్ గ్యాస్ని యూజ్ చేసినట్లయితే నది ప్రవహిస్తున్నంత ప్రాంతం అంతా కూడా కంప్లీట్గా పొల్యూట్ అవుతుంది. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైమ్ ద వాటర్ విల్ బికమ్ కంప్లీట్లీ పాయిజనస్. ఇట్ ఈస్ నాట్ క్రియేటింగ్ ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఇన్ వన్ రీజియన్. ఆ నది ప్రవహిస్తున్న ప్రాంతం అంతా కూడా ఇట్ ఈస్ గెటింగ్ ఎఫెక్ట్. But that is another gas which has come into picture these days. Even that particular gas is again consisting of one thing which are calling it as chlorine. At the same time, chlorine is used as a bleaching agent. Chlorine is used as a bleaching agent. Chlorine is used as a bleaching agent. So bleaching agent in the sense, generally bleach is used for changing the color, for removing the color, or else for reducing the impurities. For that particular purpose, we are using the case of chlorine. And finally, the last one here, we talk about the case of helium. Helium. The abundant gas in universe. The abundant gas in universe next to hydrogen. Helium is the abundant gas in universe. Helium is the abundant gas in universe next to hydrogen. The abundant gas in universe next to hydrogen. The next to hydrogen. At the same time, helium is used in the tires of aircraft. Helium is used in the tires of aircraft, or as a case of aeroplane, could be, you can write any word. Now remember one thing, hydrogen and helium ఈ రెండింటిని కంపేర్ చేసినప్పుడు we know that hydrogen is the lightest gas. అయినప్పటికీ కూడా ఏరోప్లేన్ టైర్స్లో హైడ్రోజన్ ఫిల్ చేయరు. The reason for that one, hydrogen is a combustible gas. It can catch the fire very very easily. సో నంబర్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్స్ సినిమాలో చూసే ఉంటారు, ఏరోప్లేన్స్ ఫైటర్ ప్లేన్స్ ల్యాండ్ అయ్యేటప్పుడు స్పార్క్స్ వస్తూ ఉంటాయి. ఆ పర్టికులర్ స్పార్క్ ఒకవేళ హైడ్రోజన్ గ్యాస్ కొద్దిగా లీక్ అయినా కూడా ద కంప్లీట్ ఏరోప్లేన్ will explode. Now that is the reason why hydrogen is never filled in case of aircraft tires. At the same time, hydrogen is filled in weather balloons. Sorry, helium. Helium is filled in weather balloons. Helium is filled in weather balloons. Then, neon. Neon gas is filled in red decorative lamps. Neon gas is filled in red decorative lamps. Railway signals. Neon gas is filled in red decorative lamps, railway signals, and traffic signals. మరి రీజన్ ఏంటి అన్నప్పుడు any particular bulb which is filled with neon gas, it can emit the light for longer distance. Now, for example, railway signals and traffic signals and general red light is mandatory. Now, why red light is mandatory? ఒకవేళ danger ని సూచించాలి తెలియచేయాలి, for that one red color is required. For a red color అనేది it must be visible from some long distances. So it is used in case of your decorative lamps. ఈ మధ్య కాలంలో డెకరేటివ్ ల్యాంప్స్ లో కూడా యూజ్ చేస్తున్నారు. పెద్ద పెద్ద బిల్డింగ్స్ కానివ్వండి, షాప్స్ కానివ్వండి, ఆ పర్టికులర్ షాప్స్ యొక్క పేరు it must be visible from 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers. For that particular thing, they are using these properties. Right now, all these are the properties of various elements. And so then, moving on to the next one. So we talk about the case of organic compounds. Organic compounds. Now, before we go into the case of organic compounds, the moment you're talking about the case of carbon, so the atomic number of carbon is 6, electronic configuration of carbon 1s2, 2s2, and then 2p2. So here in this particular case, carbon last orbit low, we are having how many electrons? 4 electrons. But for stability, how many it requires still? It requires 4 more. Nothing but octet configuration. It requires 4 more electrons. Now this particular carbon, it is not losing these 4 electrons. It is not gaining 4 electrons. It is involving only in the sharing of electrons. It is involving only in the sharing of electrons. So here in this particular case, so whenever you're talking about the case of any carbon atom, a carbon atom తీసుకున్నా కూడా ప్రతి ఒక్క కార్బన్ atom కి it requires 4 bonds are mandatory. So we are saying 4 bonds అని అంటాం. Why 4 bonds? Because it is short of 4 electrons. ఆ 4 electrons ని మరొక atom తో పంచుకోవడం మూలంగా వాటి మధ్య ఒక బాండ్ అనేది ఏర్పడతా ఉంది. So each and every particular carbon definitely requires 4 bonds. So without that one, that particular carbon is quite highly unstable in general. Now the thing is that based upon the number of bonds here, we say that it is a single bond ani antam, leda double bond antam, leda triple bond ani antam. Now what do you mean by this particular single bond, double bond, and triple bond? Now for example, suppose that if you talk about the case of fluorine, this one, atomic number of fluorine 9, electronic configuration 1s2, 2s2, at the same time 2p5. So in case of fluorine విషయంలో last orbit లో we are having 7 electrons. We have 7 electrons in the last orbit. That's something like this. So ఒక fluorine atom తీసుకున్నాం, ఇందులో 7 electrons ఉన్నాయి. అలాగే suppose that if you take one more fluorine, even in this particular fluorine also we have 7 electrons. Now this fluorine requires 1 electron. This fluorine also requires 1 electron for stability. Now that is the reason why. That is the reason why the second fluorine will give or else will share 1 electron with the first one. Alage the first fluorine will share 1 electron with the second one. So as a result, ఈ రెండింటి మధ్య ఒక బాండ్ అనేది ఏర్పడింది. మరి బాండ్ ఏర్పడడానికి how many electrons are given by each atom? Only one atom. Now that is the reason why the bond that is formed here is known as a single bond. Do not count the number of electrons there. Count the number of electrons which are given, which are contributed by each atom. Each atom is giving only 1 electron kabatti. The bond that is formed between the two fluorines is a single bond. Now suppose that if you talk about the case of oxygen, this oxygen atomic number is 8, electronic configuration 1s2, 2s2 at the same time 2p4. So here in this particular case, you have got 6 electrons in the outermost orbit, and oxygen requires how many electrons still? It requires 2 more electrons. So already we are having 6 electrons here. Suppose that you take one more oxygen, even the second oxygen also requires 2 more electrons for stability. Now that is the reason why the first one will give or will share 2 electrons, and the second one will also share 2 electrons. Here in this case, since each atom is contributing 2 electrons, the bond that is formed here is known as a double bond again. Now suppose that, for example, you're talking about the case of nitrogen these two. Now, in case of nitrogen, atomic number is 7, electronic configuration 1s2, 2s2 at the same time, 2p3 here. Last orbit is having how many electrons here? 5 electrons. So here in this case, nitrogen is having 5 electrons in the outermost orbit. Then, here in this particular case, the first nitrogen will share 3 and the second one will share 3. As a result, the bond that is formed is known as triple bond. సో వీటిని బేస్ చేసుకొని అంటే సింగిల్ బాండ్, డబుల్ బాండ్ ఆర్ ట్రిపుల్ బాండ్ వీటిని బేస్ చేసుకొని అంటే కార్బన్ ఆటమ్స్ మధ్య ఉన్న బాండ్ ఎలాంటిది? It can be a single, it can be a double, it can be a triple. Based on that one, we classify these particular hydrocarbons into saturated hydrocarbons, or else we classify them into unsaturated hydrocarbons. It's all completely based on one thing, which are calling it as the bond that is present. Single bond kavachu, double bond kavachu, or else that can be even the case of triple bond. If you want, you can write this. Just the diagrams are enough for it. So based on the number of electrons which are contributed by each particular atom, the bond can be termed as a single bond, a double bond, or else a triple bond. So ఇలా అంటే atom చుట్టూ number of electrons ని represent చేయడం, this is known as the Lewis dot formula. Representing the valence electrons around any atom is known as the Lewis dot formula. Representing valence electrons around any atom, representing valence electrons around any atom is known as Lewis dot formula. Is known as Lewis dot formula. The moment you're talking about the case of these particular organic compounds, Khalida, is it done? Anyone still writing this? Right. So the moment you're talking about the case of these particular organic compounds are also known as hydrocarbons. They are also known as organic compounds, are also known as hydrocarbons. Organic compounds are also known as hydrocarbons. Now, the reason for that one. Now, these hydrocarbons they consist of 85% carbon. Hydrocarbons consist of 85% carbon, 14% hydrogen. Organic compounds consist of, organic compounds also known as hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons consist 85% carbon, 14% hydrogen. Our remaining 1% low, the remaining 1% they consist of nitrogen, oxygen in small ratios. And the remaining 1% it consists of oxygen, nitrogen in smaller ratios. Right. So the moment you're talking about the case of these particular hydrocarbons, in general, hydrocarbons, we talk about two different types of hydrocarbons. One is saturated hydrocarbons. Alage unsaturated hydrocarbons, and the other one aromatic hydrocarbons. Saturated, unsaturated, as well as aromatic hydrocarbons. And the basic chemistry వాళ్ళు ఉన్నారు ఎవరైనా, right? So you all know that organic compounds and you are not we discuss a lot in length, right? So here I'm not discussing about the case of your aromatic open chain compounds కానివ్వండి, closed కానివ్వండి, alicyclic కానివ్వండి, aliphatic కానివ్వండి, ఇవన్నీ కూడా డిస్కస్ చేయడం లేదు. So what we are discussing is only the one that is present in your 10th class textbook లో ఎంతవరకు ఉన్నాయి అవి మాత్రమే మనం డిస్కస్ చేస్తాం. ఇంటర్మీడియట్ లెవెల్ కానివ్వండి, డిగ్రీ లెవెల్ కానీ డిస్కస్ చేయడం లేదు. సో 10th క్లాస్ లెవెల్లో వీఆర్ హ్యావింగ్ సాచురేటెడ్, వీఆర్ హ్యావింగ్ అన్సాచురేటెడ్, అలాగే అరోమాటిక్ కాంపౌండ్స్ కూడా 10th క్లాస్ వరకు ఉన్నాయి కాబట్టి ఇక్కడ వరకు మాత్రమే డిస్కస్ చేస్తాం. అంతేకాని ఓపెన్ చైన్, క్లోజ్డ్ చైన్, అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం సైక్లిక్ రింగ్స్, అలిఫాటిక్, ఎసైక్లిక్ ఇవన్నీ ఏవి కూడా డిస్కస్ చేయడం లేదు. వీఆర్ నాట్ గోయింగ్ టు డిస్కస్ ఆల్ దోస్ థింగ్స్. రైట్, టేక్ ఎ బ్రేక్ ఫర్ 5 minutes. That's one thing. Today we discuss one topic, that is the properties of elements, right? So properties of elements, we discussed almost around 17. No? So we discussed almost around 17 elements out of 118 elements, right? So ఈ 118 elements అన్నీ కూడా మనం డే టు డే లైఫ్లో యూస్ చేయడం లేదు. So we have discussed the properties of those elements which we are using directly or indirectly in the day-to-day life to a very greater extent. Right? That's it. Nothing more than that. 118 elements which discuss చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. ఒకసారి సల్ఫర్ ఓపెన్ చేయండి. Just add one point in case of sulfur. సల్ఫర్లో just add one point in case of sulfur. Sulfur is used in vulcanization of rubber. Sulfur is used in vulcanization of rubber. Sulfur is used in vulcanization of rubber. Now, if at all you see, metallic sodium is used in the making of artificial rubber and racer, right? But here, sulfur is used in vulcanization of rubber and yarn. Now, what do you mean by vulcanization in the sense? First and foremost thing, rubber ki source ఏంటం? రబ్బర్ మనకి ఎక్కడి నుంచి లభిస్తుంది? లాటెక్స్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది? భూమిలో నుంచి వస్తుందా? From the trees or else from the plants. Now that particular rubber which you're obtaining from the plants does not have the elastic nature. అంటే సాగే గుణం ఏదైతే ఉందో it is not having that to a greater extent. Now for that particular thing, what we are doing is that we are adding some amount of sulfur to that one and you are heating that one so that the rubber which is obtained from the trees is having the elastic nature. It can expand, and the moment you are removing the force, again it is coming back to the original position. So దాని యొక్క షేప్లో ఎటువంటి డిఫార్మేషన్ లేకుండా, కొత్త షేప్ అనేది ఏర్పడకుండా, it is coming back to the original shape. And that particular property is what is known as vulcanization అని అంటారు. Right. So coming back to the case of hydrocarbons. Now these particular hydrocarbons in general, we talk about the different types: saturated, unsaturated, as well as the case of I think we discussed white and red phosphorus. Yellow phosphorus, we do not use that one in the day-to-day life. So that is the reason why it is not having any application in the day-to-day life. Right. Then the moment you're talking about the case of saturated hydrocarbons, first we'll talk about such hydrocarbons. The hydrocarbons which consist of single bond, the hydrocarbons which consist of single bond between the carbons, this word is important. So single bond వేటి మధ్య అంటే single bond అనేది కార్బన్ల మధ్య ఉండాలి. The hydrocarbons which consist of single bond between the carbons, hydrocarbons which consist of single bond between the carbons, they are known as saturated hydrocarbons, are known as saturated hydrocarbons. Are known as saturated hydrocarbons. Right. The saturated hydrocarbons are also known as alkenes. Saturated hydrocarbons are also known as alkenes. Or paraffins. Alkenes, they are also known as paraffins. మరి alkenes general formula అని అన్నప్పుడు, the general formula of alkanes CnH2n plus 2. Alkanes general formula CnH2n plus 2. Right. Now suppose that if n equal to 1, in that particular case we'll write this one as CH4 అని అంటాం. n equal to 1, CH4. n equal to 2, it is known as C2H6. n equal to 3, it is known as C3H8. n equal to 4, it is known as C4H10. n equal to 5, it is known as C5H12. Right. So CH4 is methane. CH4 methane. C2H6 ethane. C3H8 propane. C4H10 butane. C5H12 pentane. So all these particular saturated hydrocarbons, they end with the letter A and E. Saturated hydrocarbons end with the letter, or else end with the letters A and E. At the same time, the moment you're talking about these particular alkenes, so any particular carbon compound or any particular alkane in which the number of carbons are from 1 to 5, carbon numbers and if at all if it is 1 to 5, so meaning student first listen then you can write it, right? Any particular alkene with carbon numbers from 1 to 5 and 20, CH4 nundi C5H12 varaku. At the same time, any particular alkane with n equal to 6 to 9 అని అండి. Now what is the physical state of these particular things? అంటే ఒక పర్టికులర్ ఆర్గానిక్ కాంపౌండ్ లేదా ఒక పర్టికులర్ హైడ్రోకార్బన్ లేదా ఒక పర్టికులర్ ఆల్కేన్ అనేది that may be in the gaseous state, that may be in the liquid state, that may be in the solid state. సో హైడ్రోకార్బన్స్ ఏ ఫిజికల్ స్టేట్లో అయినా కూడా ఉండొచ్చు, రైట్? మరి this particular physical state depends on what ani ante, it depends upon the number of carbons which are involved in that. Based on the number of carbons, carbon number base cheskoni ikkada 1 carbon, ikkada 2 carbons, ikkada 5 carbons. So carbon number base cheskoni that may be a solid, that may be a liquid, that may be a case of a gas. For example, mana andaramu chusina, mana andaram vadutunna so hydrocarbon edi, one hydrocarbon edi anna. For example, if you see the case of naphthalene, naphthalene balls use chestunnam, naphthalene balls andaram kuda chusam. Now these particular naphthalene, it is again a hydrocarbon in chapter. At the same time, the moment talking about the case of your petrol, again it is a hydrocarbon. Diesel, again it is a hydrocarbon. Alright, now for example methane, we are using methane. Of course methane chudledu, we cannot see that particular methane gas, but we can just feel that one, right? Now for example methane, where do you feel it? Or else methane kavach, ammonia kavach, could be any particular thing. Now for example, suppose that if I say the foul smell that is coming from, or else the foul smell from any particular septic tank, కానివ్వండి, డ్రైనేజ్ మూత కానివ్వండి ఓపెన్ చేసినప్పుడు you get a very very foul smell, right? So generally Dilshunar is known for that. ఎక్కడ పడితే అక్కడ డ్రైనేజ్ కవర్స్ అన్ని ఓపెన్ చేసి ఉంటాయి. Now the foul smell, it is because of one thing which are calling it as methane. Number of times న్యూస్ ఛానల్స్ లో చూసే ఉంటారు, వార్తల్లో చూసే ఉంటారు, సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంక్ క్లీన్ చేస్తూ చనిపోయిన వ్యక్తి అని ఉంటుంది, రైట్? The question is that septic tank clean చేస్తున్నప్పుడు why the person is dying? What is the reason for that? The reason for that one, general ga those who are involved into septic tank cleaning, of course ee rose date lo India lo manual cleaning of septic tanks is totally prohibited by law. చట్టబద్ధంగా సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంక్స్ ఎవరు కూడా మాన్యువల్ గా క్లీన్ చేయకూడదు, క్లీన్ చేయించొద్దు. ఒకరు ఎవరైనా క్లీన్ చేయిస్తుంటే you can call 100 and file a case on that person, రైట్. ఎవరు కూడా మాన్యువల్గా ఇప్పుడు మనం చూస్తూ ఉంటాం, సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంక్ దిగి క్లీన్ చేసే వాళ్ళు కనిపిస్తూ ఉంటారు. కానీ ఈ రోజు డేట్లో చట్టబద్ధంగా ఎవరు కూడా చేయకూడదు, చేయించకూడదు కూడా. పొరపాటున ఎవరైనా చేపిస్తుంటే కేసు ఫైల్ చేస్తారు. దట్ ఈస్ ద సిచ్యుయేషన్ యాజ్ ఆన్ టుడేస్ డేట్. ఇట్ ఈస్ కన్సిడర్డ్ అన్ ఎక్స్ట్రీమ్ ఆఫెన్స్. రైట్. నౌ కమింగ్ టు కేస్ ఆఫ్ యర్ సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంక్స్ అయితే క్లీన్ చేస్తారు. సో జనరల్గా కొద్దిగా నాలెడ్జ్ ఉన్న వాళ్ళు అందులో దిగే ముందు కొన్ని అగ్గిపుల్లలు గీసి అందులో వేస్తారు. మరి అగ్గిపుల్లలు ఎందుకు గీసి వేస్తున్నారు అంటే అందులో ఉన్న గ్యాస్ ఏది? మీథేన్ గ్యాస్. అండ్ దీస్ పర్టికులర్ ఆల్కేన్స్ దే ఆర్ హైలీ కంబస్టిబుల్ ఇన్ నేచర్. కంబస్టిబుల్ అంటే ఏంటి? చాలా త్వరగా ఫైర్ని క్యాచ్ చేస్తాయి. ఆ సెప్టిక్ ట్యాంక్లో ఒకవేళ మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ ఉంటే ఇమ్మీడియట్లీ ఇట్ విల్ క్యాచ్ ఫైర్. ఆ ఫైర్ అంతా కూడా ఎప్పుడైపోతుంది? మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ అయిపోతే ఫైర్ అంతా కూడా ఆరిపోతుంది. అండ్ ఆఫ్టర్ దాట్ వన్ ఒక 1-2 hours తర్వాత దే గెట్ ఇన్ టు దాట్ వన్ అండ్ దెన్ దే క్లీన్ ఇట్. That is the way they are supposed to clean that particular septic tanks. And of course, as on today's date, it is completely prohibited. So it all depends on what, and it all depends on the number of carbons. Carbons number base chesukoni, that may be a solid, that may be a liquid, or that may be a gas. Right. So alkene, right? The next statement: alkenes with carbon number 1 to 5. Alkenes with carbon number 1 to 5 exist in the gaseous state. Alkenes with carbon number 1 to 5 exist in the gaseous state. Then the next one, alkenes with carbon number 6 to 10 exist in the liquid state. And alkenes with carbon number greater than equal to 11 or maybe more than that exist in the solid state. Solid, liquid, at the same time gas. Right. That. So the moment you're talking about the case of alkenes are orderless. Alkenes are orderless and highly combustible. Alkenes are orderless and highly combustible. Smell undadu, kani they catch the fire very, very easily. Then, the moment you're talking about the case of these particular alkenes, right? The chief gas present in LPG cylinder, the chief component of LPG cylinder, the chief component, CHIEF, or else the main component of LPG cylinder is butane followed by propane. The main component of LPG cylinder, what's the full form of LPG? Liquefied petroleum gas. The main component of LPG is butane followed by propane. Butane followed by propane. మరి ఇక్కడ ఒక పాయింట్ రాస్తాం. Alkenes are orderless and highly combustible అన్నాం. మరి ఎల్పిజి సిలిండర్ నుండి మనం ఇంట్లో యూజ్ చేసే సిలిండర్ నుండి గ్యాస్ లీక్ అవుతే స్మెల్ వస్తుందా రాదా? రైట్. మళ్ళీ స్మెల్ లేదని చెప్పాం కదా ఇక్కడ. రైట్. ఆల్కేన్స్కి స్మెల్ ఉండదు అన్నాం, కానీ గ్యాస్లో ఉండే మెయిన్ కాంపోనెంట్ ఏది? బ్యూటేన్ తర్వాత ఏముంటుంది? ప్రోపేన్ ఉంటుంది. మరి ఈ పర్టికులర్ స్మెల్ అంటే మీ బ్యూటేన్ గ్యాస్ లీక్ అవుతుంది లేదా ప్రోపేన్ గ్యాస్ లీక్ అవుతుంది, దాన్ని ఐడెంటిఫై చేయడానికి దే ఆర్ యూజింగ్ వన్ మోర్ కెమికల్, అండ్ దాట్ పర్టికులర్ కెమికల్ ఈజ్ ethyl mercaptan. Ethyl mercaptan is added. Ethyl mercaptan is added to identify ethyl mercaptan is added to identify at the point. Ethyl mercaptan is added to identify the gas leakage from LPG cylinders. Ethyl mercaptan is added to identify the gas leakage from LPG cylinders. Next one. The foul smell the foul smell from septic tanks. The foul smell from septic tanks. Wet and marshy lands. The foul smell from septic tanks, wet and marshy lands. అంటే తెలుగులో వీటిని చిత్తడి నేలలు అని అంటాం. అంటే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నియర్ ద ఈక్వేటర్, రైట్, యూ మైట్ నో దిస్, ఈ నియర్ ద ఈక్వేటర్ డే టైం టెంపరేచర్స్ చాలా ఎక్కువగా ఉంటాయి, నైట్ టైం కాగానే వర్షాలు పడతా ఉంటాయి. మరి రోజు వర్షం పడుతున్నప్పుడు ఆ ప్రాంతంలో నేల ఎలా ఉంటుంది, ఎప్పుడు కూడా తడిగానే ఉంటుంది. మరి ఈక్వేటర్ దగ్గర వీ హ్యావ్ గాట్ ఎవర్ గ్రీన్ ఫారెస్ట్లు కూడా అక్కడే ఉన్నాయి. మరి ఆ అడవిలో ఉన్న ఆ చెట్లు కానివ్వండి, ఆకులు కానీ, ఇవి ఎప్పుడు కూడా వాటర్లో నానుతూనే ఉంటాయి. Now it is because of that particular thing you get a different type of smell, and that is because of one thing which we are calling it as methane అని అంటాం. The foul smell from septic tanks, wet and marshy lands is because of methane. Is because of methane. Then the foul smell from washrooms. We can write this separately. Don't include this one in case of your alkenes. The foul smell from washrooms is because of ammonia. The foul smells from washrooms is because of ammonia. The foul smell from rotten eggs. So, మురిగిపోయిన కోడిగుడ్ల, కుళ్ళిపోయిన గుడ్ల. Which is the correct word? Which is the correct word? మురిగిపోయిన కోడిగుడ్ల లేదా కుళ్ళిపోయిన గుడ్లు? Right? I'll leave that word to you people, whatever it is. Right? The foul smell, which is because of the rotten eggs, is because of hydrogen sulfide. It is because of hydrogen sulfide. Right. So this is about the case of alkanes. Then, the moment you're talking about the case of hydrocarbons, you have got saturated, at the same time unsaturated. So unsaturated hydrocarbons. Unsaturated hydrocarbons consist of double bond or triple bond. Unsaturated hydrocarbons వీటిలో కార్బన్ల మధ్య డబుల్ బాండ్ లేదా ట్రిపుల్ బాండ్ ఉంటుంది. Unsaturated hydrocarbons consist of double bond or triple bond between the carbons. Double bond or triple bond between the carbons. Right. So first we'll talk about the case of alkenes. Alkenes. Unsaturated hydrocarbon with double bond. Unsaturated hydrocarbon with double bond, they are known as alkenes. Unsaturated hydrocarbon with double bond are known as alkenes. They are also known as olefins. They are also known as olefins. Alkenes, they are also known as paraffins, and these are also known as olefins. Then, general formula CnH2n. General formula of alkenes CnH2n. మరి కార్బన్ చుట్టూ ఎన్ని బాండ్స్ కావాలి? We require 4 bonds. Now here in this case, suppose that if you take n equal to 1, then what is the formula? What it will become? N equal to 1, this ఏమవుతుంది అప్పుడు? CH2 అవుతుంది. So here in this case CH2. కానీ కార్బన్ చుట్టూ ఎన్ని బాండ్స్ కావాలి? We require 4 bonds. That is the reason why n equal to 1 will never exist. N equal to 1 will never exist అని అంట. At the same time, suppose that if you take the case of n equal to 2 తీసుకున్నాం. So the moment you are taking n equal to 2, in that particular case we write this one as C2H4. n equal to 2, C2H4. అలాగే n equal to 3, that is C3H6. n equal to 4, C4H8. n equal to 5, C5H10. So C2H4, this is known as ethene. C2H4 is known as ethene. Leda, it is having even one more name. It is also known as ethylene. C2H4 is known as ethene, or as the case of ethylene. Then C3H6, propene. C4H8, butene. C5H10, pentene. C5H10, pentene. Now these particular alkenes, they end with the letters ENE. Now, for example, suppose that if you talk about the case of C2H4 తీసుకుంటాం. So C2H4, in the sense you are having 2 carbons, and how many hydrogens we are having? 4 hydrogens. So here in this case, 1 hydrogen, 2 second hydrogen, third hydrogen, and fourth hydrogen. Now ఇప్పుడు carbons ఎన్ని bonds ఉన్నాయి ఒక్కొక్క carbon కి? Each carbon is having only 2 bonds, but carbon requires how many bonds? 4 bonds. So between the carbons, you need to have a double bond. Now here in this case, each and every carbon, this carbon is having 4 bonds, even this carbon is also having 4 bonds. So in case of here this one, for example, suppose that you talk about the case of C4H8 or else C5H10. So here in this case you are having 4 carbons, right? And how many hydrogens you are having here? 8 hydrogens. So you'll be having a double bond anywhere. ప్రతి ఒక్క కార్బన్ కి డబుల్ బాండ్ ఉండదు. ఏదైనా ఒకదానికి మాత్రమే డబుల్ బాండ్ ఉంటుంది. కంప్లీట్ స్ట్రక్చర్ లో ఏదైనా ఒక దగ్గర మాత్రమే డబుల్ బాండ్ ఉంటుంది. Now for example, ఈ కార్బన్ తీసుకుంటే this one should have how many bonds? 4 bonds. Right? So here in this particular case, this carbon is having 4. Now second carbon is having how many here? 2 plus 1, 3 already are there. So 1 bond here, 4. Again this one, it is already having here 2 plus 1, 3 unnai kabatti this is satisfied. Now this is having only 3. So the structure is something like this. C4 as well as H8. And the complete structure lo edaina oka daggara maatrame double bond untundi, not for each and every particular carbon. At the same time, the moment you're talking about the case of these particular alkenes, right? Alkenes with n equal to 2 to n equal to 3. Alkenes with n equal to 2 to n equal to 3. Alkenes with n equal to 2 and n equal to 3 exist in the gaseous state. Alkenes with 4 to 13 carbons exist in the liquid state. Alkenes with n equal to 2 and n equal to 3 exist in the gaseous state. From 4 carbons to 13 carbons liquid state. More than 13 carbons exist in the solid state. More than 13 carbons, 13 not included. More than 13 carbons exist in the solid state. More than 13 carbons exist in the solid state. Mari, where are we using this alkenes? Alkenes are used in the formation of long chain compounds known as polymers. Alkenes are used in the making of long chain compounds known as polymers. The different types of polymers that we are using as on today's date. Plastic cover, the pen that you are using, at the same time the chairs that we are using, the milk packets, oil packets, all these are the different types of polymers that we are using. అవన్నీ కూడా దీన్ని తయారు చేస్తారు. That nothing but the case of alkenes. Alkenes are used in the making of long chain compounds which are known as polymers. At the same time, the moment you're talking about the case of ethene or as the case of ethylene, it is used in artificial ripening of fruits. It is used in artificial ripening of fruits. Ethene లేదా ethylene, it is used in artificial ripening of fruits. For example, each and every particular fruit that is available or else మీరు దిల్షుక్ నగర్లో కొంటున్న ప్రతి ఒక్క పండు కూడా కెమికల్స్ యూజ్ చేసి మగ్గపెట్టినవి మాత్రమే, ఒక జామకాయల్ని మినహాయించి. వాటి కోసం మాత్రమే ఎటువంటి కెమికల్స్ యూజ్ చేయడం లేదు. అవి గ్రేప్స్ కావచ్చు, వాటర్ మిలన్ కానివ్వండి, యాపిల్ కావచ్చు, బనానా కావచ్చు, ఫర్ ఆల్ దీస్ పర్టికులర్ థింగ్స్ దట్ ఇంక్లూడ్స్ అప్కమింగ్ సీజన్ మ్యాంగోస్, right? For each and every particular thing, as on today's date, we are using some chemical which are calling it as ethene or as the case of ethylene. At the same time, ethene is used, or it's right like this, ethene along with oxygen. Ethene along with oxygen is used in the making of anesthesia. Ethene along with oxygen is used in the making of anesthesia. So this is about the case of alkenes. Right. Then moving on to the next unsaturated hydrocarbon, alkynes. Unsaturated hydrocarbons with triple bond. Unsaturated hydrocarbon with triple bond. Unsaturated hydrocarbons with triple bond are known as alkynes. Unsaturated hydrocarbon with triple bond are known as alkynes. They are also known as acetylenes. Alkanes, paraffins, alkenes, olefins, and alkynes, they are also known as acetylenes. General formula: CnH2n minus 2. General formula: CnH2n minus 2. మరి CnH2n minus 2 అన్నప్పుడు n equal to 1 పాసిబుల్ అవుతుందా? Suppose that if you take n equal to 1, that will become C1H0. It is not possible. So n equal to 2. So n equal to 2, it can write this one as C2 to the 4 minus 2. So C2H2. N equal to 2 C2H2, which is known as ethine, or else it is known as acetylene. Acetylenes annappudu complete alkynes వస్తాయి. And if at all you are not writing the plural form, singular form raste, that is nothing but the case of the very first one, which are calling it as ethine. N equal to 2 C2H2, or else acetylene అని అంట. Then N equal to 3, that will be C3H4. N equal to 4 C4H6. N equal to 5 C5H8. C5H8. C3H4 propine, C4H6 butane, C5H8, this is pentine. So ending with the letters YNE. Ending with the letters YNE. Ethine, propine, butane, as well as pentine. Right. Next one. So alkynes with N equal to 2 and 3 exist in the gaseous state. Alkynes with N equal to 2, N equal to 3 exist in the gaseous state. Alkynes with N equal to 4 to 11, 4 to 11 liquid state, 4 to 11 liquid state. N equal to 2 to 3 gaseous state, N equal to 4 to 11 liquid state, and 12 or more than 12, 12 or more than 12 solid state. 12 or more than 12 solid state. So the moment you're talking about the case of the uses of this one. Acetylene along with oxygen, acetylene along with oxygen is known as oxyacetylene flame. I think morning last night acetylene along with oxygen is known as oxyacetylene flame. Oxyacetylene flame, which is used in glass blowing. Which is used in glass blowing. Acetylene is used in welding purpose. Acetylene is used in welding. Acetylene is used in the making of artificial rubber. The previous question. Artificial rubber, which is also known as neoprene. Acetylene is used in the making of artificial rubber, which is also known as neoprene. Which is also known as neoprene. Now this is about the case of alkenes as well as alkynes. Then the last one here, we talk about the case of aromatic compounds. Aromatic hydrocarbons. Right. What do you mean by aroma? Is it smell, or else can you use any other word for that? Order. So smell and your number, that can be a false smell, that can be a pleasant smell. Which smell? అరోమా అంటే స్మెల్ అన్నారు. మరి స్మెల్ అంటే రెండు రకాలు ఉంటాయి, రైట్? ద స్మెల్ దట్ యు ఆర్ గెటింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ పెర్ఫ్యూమ్ కావచ్చు, లేదా స్వీట్స్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు వచ్చే స్మెల్ కావచ్చు, లేదా ద స్మెల్ దట్ యు ఆర్ గెటింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ వాష్రూమ్స్ కూడా కావచ్చు. సో విచ్ స్మెల్ దట్ యు ఆర్ టాకింగ్ అబౌట్? The pleasant smell. Aroma in the sense, basically, you mean to say you're talking about the case of pleasant smell and yanta. Now, these particular aromatic hydrocarbons, in general, all the aromatic hydrocarbons, they possess pleasant smell. All the aromatic hydrocarbons, they possess pleasant smell. Now, the general formula CnH2n minus 6. The general formula of aromatic hydrocarbons CnH2n minus 6. So CnH2n minus 6 అని అన్నప్పుడు n equal to 1 exist కాదు, n equal to 2 కాదు, n equal to 3 కూడా కాదు. So directly you can go for n equal to 6 తీసుకోవచ్చు. So the moment you are saying n equal to 6, then what you can write this? C6H6. What is C6H6? C6H6 is nothing but benzene. C6H6 is benzene. Now, if you see the structure of benzene, so in case of benzene, first and foremost thing, benzene is a ringed structure ani antam, cyclic structure ani antam. Now, here in case of benzene, we have got 6 carbons like this. So initially, you have got a bond which is present between all the carbons. Alage, number of hydrogens are equal to 6 here. So it means this is the structure of benzene. But here in this particular case, if you observe, each and every carbon is having how many bonds here? 3 bonds. Kan ennu undali? So each carbon must definitely have 4 bonds here. Now suppose that you are placing a double bond here. Then number of bonds for this carbon 2, 3 and 4. Number of bonds for this carbon 1, 2 and 4. If you place a double bond here, this will be having 4 bonds, this will be having 4 bonds. Suppose that if at all you're placing a double bond here, then in that particular case, all the carbons are having 4 bonds each. Now, based on this, we give a statement that all these aromatic hydrocarbons, they possess alternate single bond and double bond. Right? All the aromatic hydrocarbons possess single bond and double bond alternatively. They possess the single bond and double bonds alternatively. So any particular hydrocarbon in which the single bond and double bond are present alternatively, they are known as aromatic carbons. Question ila untadi. Any hydrocarbon with single bond and double bond alternatively are known as saturated, unsaturated, cyclic, aromatic ante they are known as aromatic hydrocarbons. Only వీటిలో మాత్రమే alternate double bond and single bond అంటూ ఉంటాయి. Then, for example, suppose that if you talk about the case of CH4, C2H6, C3H8, C4H10 and C5H12. ఒక సీక్వెన్స్ తీసుకుంటాం. Now here in this case, first and second, so కార్బన్ డిఫరెన్స్ అలాగే హైడ్రోజన్ డిఫరెన్స్, ఎన్ని కార్బన్స్ తక్కువగా ఉన్నాయి, ఎన్ని హైడ్రోజన్స్ తక్కువగా ఉన్నాయి. సో ఇక్కడ we can write that the difference here is CH2 అని రాయొచ్చా? Because when you're comparing these two things, methane and ethane, ఒక కార్బన్ తక్కువగా ఉంది, రెండు హైడ్రోజన్ తక్కువగా ఉన్నాయి. At the same time, the moment I'm comparing second and third compare cheste, again the difference is 1 carbon and 2 hydrogens. Again the moment I'm comparing third and fourth, again the difference is 1 carbon and 2 hydrogens. If you're comparing fourth and fifth, again the difference is one carbon and two hydrogens. Ikkada, we will not compare the difference between first and third, second and fourth, third and fifth consider cheyyamu. We are considering the difference between two consecutive members of a particular series. So difference ఎంత ఉంది ఇక్కడ? CH2 ఇలాంటి series ని, this particular series is what is known as a homologous series అని అంటాం. రైట్ స్టేట్మెంట్ నేను చెప్తాను ఒక నిమిషం ఆగండి. So for example, suppose that if at all you're taking something like this, CH3OH, or else suppose that you're talking about C2H5OH, or else C3H7OH, or else C4H9OH, C5H11OH. Now here in this particular case, the difference between the first and the second member, what is the difference here? సో వన్ కార్బన్ తక్కువగా ఉంది, రెండు హైడ్రోజన్స్ తక్కువగా ఉన్నాయి, కానీ ఆల్కహాల్ మాత్రం ఇట్ ఇస్ ద సేమ్, OH అండ్ OH అని అంటున్నా. అగైన్ హియర్ ద డిఫరెన్స్ ఇస్ CH2 హియర్. సెకండ్ అండ్ థర్డ్ డిఫరెన్స్ ద సేమ్ థింగ్, అగైన్ CH2. అగైన్ థర్డ్ అండ్ ఫోర్త్ CH2. దెన్ ఫోర్త్ అండ్ ఫిఫ్త్ డిఫరెన్స్ ఈజ్ CH2. అంటే ఒక పర్టికులర్ సిరీస్లో టూ కాన్సిక్యూటివ్ ఎలిమెంట్స్ మధ్య డిఫరెన్స్ CH2 ఉన్న వాటిని మనం homologous series అని అంటాం. అలాగే the members of the homologous series differ in their atomic mass by 14 units. Is it right? The members of the homologous series differ in their atomic mass by how many units? This is the previous question. By how many units? అంటే 14 units అంటాం, లేదా we can even say 14 atomic mass units అని కూడా అంట, 14 AMU అంట. మరి ఆ 14 ఎలా వచ్చింది? కార్బన్ అటామిక్ మాస్ ఎంత? 12. ఎన్ని హైడ్రోజన్స్ ఉన్నాయి? 2 హైడ్రోజన్స్, కాబట్టి 12 plus 2 14. The members of a homologous series differ in their atomic mass by 14 AMU. This is a previous question. మరి హోమోలోగస్ సిరీస్ అంటే ఏంటి అన్నప్పుడు, ఎనీ పర్టికులర్ సిరీస్ ఇన్ విచ్ టూ కాన్సిక్యూటివ్ మెంబర్స్, అంటే ఫస్ట్ అండ్ సెకండ్, సెకండ్ అండ్ థర్డ్, థర్డ్ అండ్ ఫోర్త్, ఫోర్త్ అండ్ ఫిఫ్త్, అలాగే కంటిన్యూ చేసుకుంటూ పోవాలి. సో డిఫరెన్స్ ఎంత ఉండాలి అంటే CH2 ఉండాలి. వాటిని మనం ఏమంటాం? హోమోలోగస్ సిరీస్ అంటాం. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం ఈ పర్టికులర్ హోమోలోగస్ సిరీస్లో ఉన్న ఏ మెంబర్స్ని మనం కంపేర్ చేసినా their chemical properties will remain the same, but physical properties matram change అవుతాయి. Chemical properties will remain the same. For example, ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఏంటంటే ఇవన్నీ కూడా alkanes, ఇవన్నీ కూడా alkanes. Alkanes లో n equal to 1 నుండి n equal to 5 ఏ స్టేట్ లో ఉంటాయి? అవన్నీ కూడా గ్యాషియస్ స్టేట్ లో ఉంటాయి. దెన్ ఒకవేళ నెక్స్ట్ C6H14 రాసాం, C7H16 రాసాం, అవి ఏ స్టేట్ లో ఉంటాయి? అవి లిక్విడ్ స్టేట్ లో ఉంటాయి. Then after that, suppose if it is writing C11 rasam, C12 rasam, అవి ఏ స్టేట్ లో ఉంటాయి? సాలిడ్ స్టేట్ లో. అంటే ఫిజికల్ ప్రాపర్టీస్ చేంజ్ అయ్యాయి కానీ their chemical nature will never change. The members of homologous series will have same chemical properties but different physical properties, and difference in their atomic mass is just 14 atomic mass units. With the heading homologous series. If the members of a particular series differ, if the members of a homologous series differ, if the consecutive members, just write one word, if the consecutive members of a series differ by if the consecutive members of a series differ by CH2, CH రాసే ముందు we have to draw this line. CH రాసే ముందు before C draw the horizontal line. ఎందుకంటే this particular line represents that కార్బన్ కి ఇంకా రెండు బాండ్స్ అవసరము. CH2 అన్నాం. కార్బన్ ఎన్ని బాండ్స్ ఉన్నాయి ఇక్కడ? రెండే ఉన్నాయి. ఎన్ని కావాలి? 4 కావాలి. And this line indicates that carbon requires 2 more bonds still, extra కావాలి ఇంకా. So if the members of a series, if the consecutive members of a series differ by CH2 or differ in their atomic mass by 14 AMU atomic mass unit, it is known as homologous series. It is known as homologous series. Right. The next one. The members of a homologous series, differ in their physical properties, but their chemical properties will remain the same. The members of the homologous series differ in their physical properties, but their chemical properties will remain the same. Then write some points here. Hey, వద్దంటే ఆపేస్తాను. వాళ్ళు పుచ్చుకొని సౌండ్ చేయకండి. Methyl alcohol రాయలేదా అది ఇంతకు ముందు? హోమోలోగస్ సిరీస్ రాసారా? రాయలేదా? టేక్అవుట్, ఒకవేళ ఎవరైతే రాయలేదో పుల్ ఇట్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ బ్రెయిన్. Methyl alcohol, it is also known as wood spirit. Methyl alcohol is also known as wood spirit. ఇవన్నీ కూడా ప్రీవియస్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. Previous questions, at the same time some of the important points. Methyl alcohol is also known as wood spirit. The next one. Consumption of methyl alcohol in small amount leads to blindness, and in large amount it leads to the death of a person. And in large amount it leads to the death of a person. Next one. Ethyl alcohol. The next one, ethyl alcohol. It is prepared by the fermentation of molasses or starched food grains. It is used as a solvent in starched food grains. The next one. It is used as a solvent in cough syrup. It is used as a solvent in cough syrup, and tincture, Tinture, Tincture. It is used as a solvent in cough syrup and tincture. Next one. 100% ethyl alcohol. 100% ethyl alcohol is known as absolute alcohol. Is known as absolute alcohol. 100% ethyl alcohol is known as absolute alcohol. Then 90% petrol, 90% petrol plus 10% ethyl alcohol is known as gasohol. 90% petrol plus 10% ethyl alcohol is known as gasohol. Next one. The next one. Glycerine. Glycerine. It is used in making explosives. It is used in making explosives, shoe polish, cosmetics, stamp ink, stamp ink, and fruits preservation. And fruits preservation. Next one. The next one. Spirit. Spirit. It is an alcoholic beverage. Spirit is an alcoholic beverage containing alcohol. Spirit is an alcoholic beverage containing alcohol. It is an alcoholic beverage containing. Sorry. Spirit is an alcoholic beverage containing ethanol. Containing ethanol. It is an alcoholic beverage which is containing ethanol. It is produced by. Spirit is produced by the fermentation of vegetables and fruits. Fermentation of vegetables and fruits. Then the next one. Glucose. Glucose, also known as dextrose. Glucose, also known as dextrose. It is obtained from starch. It is obtained from starch. It is obtained from starch by hydrolysis. By hydrolysis. The next one. Fructose. Fructose, also known as fruit sugar. also known as fruit sugar. Natural fructose. Natural fructose is also known as natural fructose is also known as levulose. Laevulose. It is used in natural fructose is also known as levulose, and it is used in medicinal syrup. It is used in medicinal syrup and chocolates. It is used in medicinal syrup and chocolates. So that's it, guys. So that is about the case of your organic chemistry. So we'll move on to the final part here. So the very first question, the process of transformation of a substance in a gaseous state into liquid state due to change in pressure or temperature of the substance, that is known as condensation. That is known as condensation. The change of state directly from solid to gas without changing to liquid state is known as sublimation. Elements having the same atomic number or proton number but different mass numbers or protons but showing similar chemical properties are known as isotopes. Atomic theory of matter was initially presented by John Dalton. The nucleus of an atom consists of protons as well as the case of neutrons. The radioactive element which is commonly used in nuclear reactors for producing electricity by nuclear fission. Uranium or thorium. Right? For you people, or I can say that the right answer for this one is uranium. The reason why. Thorium enduku రాయకూడదు, the answer for that one is thorium based nuclear reactors అవి ఇంకా ఆపరేషనల్లో లేవు. They are not still working. It is still a theoretical entity మాత్రమే. రైట్, ఇండియాలో ఈ రోజు డేట్ లో మనకున్న న్యూక్లియర్ రియాక్టర్స్ అన్నీ కూడా యురేనియం బేస్డ్ న్యూక్లియర్ రియాక్టర్స్ ఉన్నాయి. అలాగే యురేనియం ప్లస్ ప్లూటోనియం యూజ్ చేస్తున్నవి ఉన్నాయి. దట్స్ అ డిఫరెంట్ కాన్సెప్ట్ ఆల్ టుగెదర్. సో ఇందుకు మనం ఒక పాయింట్ రాస్తాం. సో వాట్ ఈస్ ద ఓర్ ఆఫ్ యురేనియం అని అన్నప్పుడు యురానినైట్ అని అన్నాం, పిచ్ బ్లెండ్ అన్నాం. అలాగే థోరియం ఓర్ ఏంటంటే మోనోజైట్ అన్నాం. బట్ వాట్ ఈస్ ద ఓర్ ఆఫ్ ప్లూటోనియం? రైట్, ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ రేడియో యాక్టివ్ ఎలిమెంట్ అన్నాం. సో న్యూక్లియర్ రియాక్టర్స్ లో కొన్ని న్యూక్లియర్ రియాక్టర్స్ లో యురేనియం యూజ్ చేసినప్పుడు ప్లూటోనియం అనేది మనకు లభిస్తుంది యాజ్ ఏ బై ప్రోడక్ట్ ఆర్ వేస్ట్ ప్రోడక్ట్ అని అంటారు. So that is the reason why here in this case the right answer is uranium, but don't go for thorium. Then the elements which are used to absorb neutrons to control the chain reaction during nuclear fission. So first thing, what are they known as? Nuclear fission ni control cheyadaniki use చేసేవాడిని ఏమంటాం? కంట్రోల్ రాడ్స్ అంటాం. మరి కంట్రోల్ రాడ్స్ అని అన్నప్పుడు here in this case boron as well as the case of cadmium, they are used as the control rods here. Then dash is used as a moderator in atomic reactors. Graphite is used as a moderator. Graphite to part even heavy water is also used. Then a device which is known as Geiger-Müller counter is used for the measurement of radioactivity. is used for the measurement of radioactivity. Geiger, that is a device. Geiger-Muller counter. It's known as Geiger-Muller counter అని అంటాం. How fast a particular element is decaying. And alpha particles కానీ beta particles కానీ ఎంత fast గా రిలీజ్ అవుతున్నాయి. At the same time, ఆ particular element యొక్క half life period calculate చేయడానికి we use that. The technique of calculating the age of fossil organisms is known as radiocarbon dating. Iron is prevented from rusting by coating with zinc, and the process is known as galvanization. The acid which is used in traditional batteries lay the lead storage cells. It is sulfuric acid. Which metal forms an amalgam with other metals? Mercury. So you can write a point here. Mercury does not react with iron to form amalgam. ఒక ఐరన్ మినహాయించి మిగతా అన్నిటితోటి కూడా అది రియాక్ట్ అవుతుంది. Mercury does not react with iron to form amalgam. Mercury does not react with iron to form amalgam. Alage, mercury is always preserved in or stored in iron containers. Mercury is always stored in iron containers. మిగతా వాటితో వేస్తే రియాక్ట్ అవుతుంది కాబట్టి it is always stored in iron containers. Then the 14th one, the chemical name of vinegar. Ethanoic acid. Chemical name of vinegar, ethanoic acid. Then the sour curd or sour milk, it consists of lactic acid. Dash is used to remove the ink and rust stains on clothes. Oxalic acid. Dash is a reagent which can dissolve the noble metals like gold and platinum. Aqua regia. Which acid is found in ants' sting? Formic acid. Aqua regia is a 1:3 mixture by volume of. Ratio ఏముంది 1:3. ఒకవేళ 3:1 అంటే HCl and nitric acid. What is the ratio here? 1:3. 1:3 అని అన్నప్పుడు that is nitric acid and HCl. Nitric acid and HCl. Alage, suppose that if a question is something like this, in air, what is the percentage of what is the ratio of oxygen and nitrogen? 4:1 కాదు 1:4, because you are saying oxygen first and nitrogen second. Then the carbon based substance used in modern day pencils, graphite. The hardest allotrope of carbon, in which all the carbon atoms are quaternary in nature, right? That is nothing but C60. Sorry, Mokanisham. Hardest allotrope. Since it is the hardest allotrope, it is a diamond. Diamond is the hardest element, that is the hardest substance that is known to us. The major constituent of gobar gas or biogas, or else the case of the natural gas. So methane. You can write here, gobar gas consists of methane along with carbon dioxide. Gobar gas, it consists of methane and carbon dioxide. Alage, compressed natural gas, it consists of methane and ethane. LPG, butane and propane అని అన్నాం. Gobar gas, methane and carbon dioxide. Alage, compressed natural gas, methane and ethane. Which gas is used as a fire extinguisher? Carbon dioxide. Then highest percentage of carbon and lowest percentage of Volatile material is found in which form of coal? Anthracite coal. Which fiber catches the fire least? Least annam kabatti it is cotton. Brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. What is the principal ore of aluminium? Bauxite. Which element is used to make the coils used in water heaters? Nichrome. Which metal is found in free state in nature and it was the first metal to be used by the human beings? So 29th, I think it is copper. The first metal used by a man or else by human beings. I think history lo we talk about the case of Stone Age and Copper Age and So copper was the first thing. At room temperature, the metal that remains in liquid state is gallium. Gallium is known as summer liquid and gallium is known as summer liquid. Guys, sorry. So here the metal and covered it is mercury. So you're talking about the case of a metal which is in the liquid state throughout. That is mercury. Then German silver is an alloy which does not contain the metal silver. The inert gas which is substituted for nitrogen in the air, which is used by deep sea divers for breathing, helium. The most abundant inert gas in the atmosphere used in electric bulb and has the lowest electron affinity, argon. So here in this case we are having 2 points ikkada. Okati abundant inert gas in the atmosphere which is electric bulb lo use chesedi edi annappudu argon ani antam. Alage lowest electron affinity ఉన్న gas edi annappudu argon. Then white phosphorus is always stored in water. Sodium aithe kerosene. Identify the element that is most prolific in the crust of the earth. Oxygen. Prolific in the sense abundant. Chala ఎక్కువగా ఉన్న element ఏది metal కాదు. If it is not mentioned metal, it is not non-metal, it is not a metalloid. It is clearly mentioned as an element అన్నాడు. So element కాబట్టి it is oxygen. Suppose that ఒకవేళ metalloid అని ఉంటే silicon is a metalloid. Which gas in the solid state is also known as dry ice? Carbon dioxide in the solid state is known as dry ice. The depletion of the ozone layer is due to chlorofluorocarbons, CFC carbons. Greenhouse effect or global warming is caused by. So here in this particular case it is carbon dioxide, ozone and water vapor. In simple terms, all the above. All the above. The constituents of automobile exhaust that can cause cancer or mental disease and pollutes the air of a big city. In a point చెప్పాను కానీ ఎవరు రాయలేదు. Petrol we are talking about 2 types of petrol. One leaded petrol and unleaded petrol and so leaded petrol use చేయడం మూలంగా petrol is giving us more amount of lead, and that particular lead when it reacts with oxygen it gives lead oxide resulting in asthma or as the case of a cancer. Diesel use చేస్తే ఏది ఎక్కువ రిలీజ్ అవుతుంది? పెట్రోల్ యూజ్ చేయడం మూలంగా ఎక్కువగా రిలీజ్ అయ్యేది లెడ్. డీజిల్ యూజ్ చేయడం మూలంగా ఎక్కువగా రిలీజ్ అయ్యేది సల్ఫర్. ఆ సల్ఫర్ మూలంగా సల్ఫర్ డయాక్సైడ్ మూలంగా సల్ఫరస్ యాసిడ్ which is responsible for acid rains. అందుకే చెప్పాను కొన్ని పాయింట్స్ రాయలేదు అన్నాను. చాలా మంది many of you haven't written that one. What are the components of an acid rain? Acid rain లో ఉండేవి ఏవేవి ఉంటాయి? sulfur dioxide, SO2, and NO2. Both A and B are present in that. So that is the reason why I think you have written acid rain is because of sulfur dioxide along with the oxides of carbon and nitrogen as well. The process of improving the quality of a rubber by heating it with sulfur, that is known as vulcanization. Natural rubber is a polymer of isoprene. It is a polymer of isoprene. In vulcanization process, rubber can be hardened by adding sulfur, milk of magnesia, MgOH, taken twice. The chemical name of laughing gas, or else the symbol for laughing gas here. So 45th one here in this case, that is N2O. The common name of sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. The common name of calcium hypochlorite, used extensively for sterilizing of water, bleaching powder. The chemical name of common salt, which is found abundantly in seawater, sodium chloride. Sodium chloride. Then the tear gas used by the police department to disperse the mob consists of chlorine. ఇది గుర్తుపెట్టుకున్నాం. Particularly which form of chlorine ante, this is the one, chloropicrin. The chemical name of plaster of Paris, commonly used for setting of the broken bones, is calcium hyposulfate. If it is calcium sulfate, that is known as gypsum. Calcium sulfate and the gypsum, calcium hyposulfate and a plaster of Paris. Then plaster of Paris is made by the partial dehydration of gypsum salt. The element which is used for making solar cells, silicon. The most commonly used chemical in artificial rain making or cloud seeding, silver iodide. Silver iodide. Which halide is used in making sensitive emulsion on photographic film? Silver bromide. Silver bromide is used in making sensitive emulsions. The gas which is used for artificial ripening of fruits, ethane or ethylene. Other name of this one? Ethylene, other name. Ethene or else ethylene, both mean the same. The chemical substance which is present in the bones, calcium phosphate. The gas which is involved in Bhopal gas tragedy, methyl isocyanate. In the modern periodic table, metalloids and non-metals are found in which block? Right, metalloids, and non-metals they are found in P block. SDF block only metals matrame. In which group of the periodic table the halogens are placed? 17th group. So మొత్తం 18 groups ఉన్నాయి. So last but one group, that is 17th one, you have halogens in that. The modern Let's just go back to the 60-second one. Which metal was earlier called as wolfram? Tungsten. Tungsten was earlier known as wolfram. And then talonite is the combination of cobalt and chromium. Then name the only metal that is antibacterial. Copper. Which of the following is an example for a pair of isobars? Argon, potassium, and calcium. P. Which of the following element is a metalloid? 66 one. Out of these things, which is a metalloid? Silicon is a metalloid. Which of the following gases turn lime water milky? Carbon dioxide. At what pH value the tooth decay will start? 5.5. Reaction between acid and base is known as neutralization reaction. Which of the following acid pair source is correctly matched? Lemon, citric acid. Then within what pH range does the human body work? 7 to 7.8. Dolomite is an ore of which of the following ones? Calcium. Corundum is an ore of aluminium. Cinnabar is an ore of mercury. Buckminster fullerene is an allotrope of carbon. Which of the following is not unsaturated hydrocarbon? Not unsaturated butane. Formula for butane gas, C4H10. Which of the following elements is a lanthanide? 78th one, cerium. Cerium is a lanthanide. In the periodic table, Mendeleev could not assign an exact position to hydrogen. Which of the following elements has the lowest electronegativity? Francium. Francium has the least electronegativity. The noble gases belong to which group? 18th group. Which scientists arrange the periodic table of elements in the increasing order of their atomic masses? Mendeleev. Oh, finish. Right, Mendeleev. So basically, Newland, okay, Newland unte, that is also right answer. At constant temperature, the amount of a given gas that dissolves in a liquid is directly proportional to partial pressure of the gas in equilibrium with that particular liquid. So here in this case, the answer for that one is Henry's law. Dash are homogeneous mixture of two or more components. So here in the solutions. Which of the following acid is found in apple? Malic acid. A traditional battery consists of which of the following chemicals? Sulfuric acid. Which of the following synthetic element is responsible for ozone layer depletion? Chlorofluorocarbons. Then oxalic acid is found in spinach. Which among the following gases is also known as laughing gas? Nitrogen oxide. What is the chemical name of slaked lime? Calcium hydroxide. Which of the following is also known as Epsom salt? Magnesium sulfate. Aqua regia is a freshly prepared mixture of HCl and nitric acid in the ratio of 3:1. The process of vaporization and condensation, that is known as distillation. Which gases cause explosion in coal mines? Methane. Right. So that's it, guys. So that is about the case of the chemistry point. All the best for you.